A cool and quiet break today, Monday, but we're back in the hot seat again with severe weather. Believe it or not, it's been a very active March and transitioning into early April, spring time in full severe mode here. It seems like lately. So Tuesday, tomorrow, we have this outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, which has all of the Ozarks under some sort of risk of severe storms. And what they do is they just establish these categories, with green being the lowest here and purple being the highest. So you see that Missouri's kind of split between the low, which is a marginal, to slight risk. Those have names. And most of this is meant to be in the late evening and even the overnight hours, where a line of storms is forecast to develop there and just kind of move into the area. It's a pattern that we're used to seeing. It kind of stretches out more this way with time and then just basically disintegrates over us Tuesday night into early Wednesday, which sets up the next day. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we'll go and take a look at the tornado risk. It's interesting, this afternoon they kind of upgraded the area here in south central Kansas over into eastern Kansas, north of Chanute, to a 10% tornado risk. That's right in here, which, on the scale is actually fairly significant. And you'll notice that areas of western Missouri, southwest Missouri are in the 5% category. Again, this is mostly tomorrow night and mostly because of a squall line that's anticipated to kind of go and stretch out over the area here. And so these would be embedded within a squall line. I don't think they would be supercell independent or discrete supercells at this point. Doesn't look likely. And then again, we just wash, rinse, and repeat and shift, basically. So all this shifts to the east on Wednesday, and then this is the area here. This is a level 3 enhanced, which starts at Springfield and moves east. And I was saying on some of these earlier recordings, get used to that. It's a very common theme, and it seems to be setting up just the way the ocean temperatures and the jet stream patterns are setting up. We're seeing a repeat of the same sort of, southwest Missouri is on a tight gradient between no severe storms and fairly severe storms. And so, like this last one, Sunday, we actually did dodge the bullet a little bit. We had some large hail, to be sure. I was down chasing in the Boot Heel, and there were tornado warnings, but not many tornadoes. So there was something missing in the lower atmosphere to get those tornadoes really ramped up. Even though on radar they at times look pretty impressive. So this outlook for Wednesday, though, again, they're going to ramp up as we go through the day. And the details on this is a real interesting thing, because it really does depend on where that squall line from the previous night sets up, how it stretches out, how it moves the next day, where it might wiggle around a little bit. So that's an important factor. So let's take a look at some model data and see what we can figure out for late Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll take a gaze at the HRRR high-res model. It goes out 48 hours from 1 o'clock today, so that'll cover up until 1 o'clock on Wednesday. So we'll need to look at something else to kind of fill out that day. But this is a good place to start. So we'll just kind of move ahead. Now, this is just going to be the radar and the isobars. So if we go ahead here, this is Tuesday, right around lunchtime right here. So a very, very vigorous southerly flow in the Nebraska Panhandle. So there's moisture coming up from the Gulf and higher dew points with this. We might take a look at that. We might take a look at the instability too. So that again is noon on Tuesday, but most of the activity is going to wait here. So let's go ahead. You'll notice right there, that's 7 o'clock in the evening. That's Tuesday evening. We have a few. I said earlier I didn't think any isolated supercells will develop. That's what that might be. I said that before I actually looked at the latest model data. So those might be there, but certainly I think we can expect a squall line to develop right along here. And as we move this forward, you'll see that's exactly what does happen. We'll watch what happens to those individual supercells like that one there. It looks like that may approach Nevada. But again, you can't put too much confidence in the exact position of any single cell here. Sometimes this model does pretty good, but probably not. But you can see the squall line developing, certainly, and it moves through Kansas City. Now we're talking about 7Z. So this is 2 o'clock in the morning, so it's knocking on the door. And if there's a tornado threat, it might be with that isolated supercell I showed you, or it might be just embedded cells in this line right here as it starts to approach west central Missouri late Tuesday, overnight Tuesday into Wednesday morning. So we keep advancing it. It kind of falls apart by the time it gets to Springfield. That's about 6 a.m. right there. It's lost all of its severe character probably for the most part, although it's still a pretty active jet stream. So there might be a few severe thunderstorms still left in that. Then what happens in this time frame, early Tuesdays or early Wednesday, is very interesting. See, it kind of stalls out a little bit. So your unstable air is going to redevelop out ahead of this area, probably in these areas right here. And that's what we're going to have to watch and see what happens. And if I take it to the last frame, so it looks like Springfield, at least according to this model, really isn't looking at a whole lot of activity beyond what kind of slides in late Tuesday, early Wednesday. But again, this can shift, and that's what I was saying earlier, is that you really just have to watch and see where this exactly lays itself down in order to figure it out. So that's one thing. We'll take a look at instability here next. Same model. Now we're looking at CAPE, and if you looked at these for a while, you realize that's a parameter that meteorologists use to assess the instability of the air. How unstable are things? And so you want colors to show up basically for unstable air. So at first, at least, we go through Tuesday here. This is that's right around lunchtime. It's not even crossing the Red River Valley yet there in southern Oklahoma. But as we go, that's 7 p.m. So we have this nose, if you will, of higher instability working its way into Kansas. If you'll recall, that tornado threat, the 10% axis, was just about where I drew that rectangle. Actually, more precisely, it was sort of here. One of the thoughts is that the nose of the unstable air, along with the powerful jet stream, will allow for the possibility of some stronger tornadoes right in there. That's 2Zs. That's 9 o'clock at night. Here's midnight. You can kind of see a cold front. Oh, I got the wrong tool here. The cold front is actually here. The dry line is here. So these are just kind of advancing toward each other like they often do. And so overnight, so we have unstable air that does work its way into extreme southwest Missouri here at 8Z. So, and there's even a little hint of just kind of a surge or a little bow in the dry line. Oftentimes that can be a sparking mechanism for one individual cell along the line to kind of kick up its heels a little bit more. So that'll need to be watched into the wee hours of the morning for extreme southwest Missouri especially. And then if we just keep going and seeing what happens, as like we were showing you earlier, the unstable air what needs to be building out ahead of where the old squall line dies. So at least looking at this model, there's not too much of a concern left for Missouri or Arkansas on Wednesday early in the day at least. Although it may break up beyond this model. Certainly I think there would be a return of some of the unstable here once the sun comes up. But this is through 1 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. So I think the gist of all this is that this area would still be severe weather prone, whereas Missouri I think would be, or Springfield, Missouri would be out of it by later on Wednesday. But again, keep in mind that these boundaries can shift. Even a couple, even 50 or 100 miles will make a huge difference for what actually happens across southwest Missouri on Wednesday. Now we'll stay with the unstable air and switch models. This is the NAM, the North American model. This is from 18Z again today. So it ran at 1 o'clock and goes 84 hours in the future. We won't need that much, but let's just kind of see what happens. So it does something very similar. So here's 10 o'clock at night, tomorrow night. That axis of unstable air noses its way into Kansas. Overnight, it still makes its way northward and eastward. So again, that severe weather risk, that 2% tornado risk that kind of punches into parts of western Missouri, that's right there. That's enough unstable air to make a difference. And the jet stream winds will be very favorable for that too. Low-level rotation, low-level surface winds are pretty good too. So a spin up is not hard to produce even in the middle of the night like that. And again, that ramps up the more west you head out of Springfield border area there to Kansas and Oklahoma, that area. And then I just showed you the other model. This is interesting. So what happens during the day on Wednesday? So that's noon, but already you see big differences between that and the HRRR. There's a lot more unstable air and pockets developing. So the atmosphere, as you can see here and also here, is recovering a lot bigger and better than in the other model. And the other model stops here. So if we go from 18Z to 21Z, which is 4 o'clock, you can see there's support for maybe a squall line right along that instability axis right there. and then that would continue to move on to the east as we get evening and more into the evening. That's actually 7 o'clock at night. So there's even some evidence of a little bit of surging right here where we're not quite done yet. So this could go on into Wednesday evening into northwest Arkansas before it finally gets shut down. And actually, it kind of pivots a little bit. And that makes sense because the day 4 Storm Prediction Center outlook has an oval kind of shape that kind of encompasses that very area there where the unstable air is. And let's go out to Thursday and take a look at that. So that's Thursday in the afternoon. So it looks like the Ozarks might be in the clear, except for Arkansas. You're close enough to this boundary that you might still get in on it on Thursday, but unstable air develops around the Red River Valley on Thursday. So we have the 3 days of events: Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So as always, keep an eye to the sky. It usually works out well that thunderstorm lines approach the Ozarks late at night, like toward morning, but not always. And this one, like I said, has a pretty good jet stream with it and enough unstable air to squeeze something out of the system. And the low level winds are strong. And when that happens, it's easier to spin up tornadoes. I think that when I went on that chase yesterday, that was one of the issues, is that we didn't have enough low level spinning and basically just enough of a strong wind at the surface period. But this one's going to be different. So let's keep an eye on that. I'll be watching it tonight and probably bringing another update tomorrow.